Hi, this is Jon from whatifi. In this video, I'm going to cover some key concepts like how to connect events back together and how to bypass different events in different threads to create different types of calculations on the fly. This is a temporary video as we are quickly updating our UI, and you may notice that some of these calculations and some of these display pieces are already different. I'll be showing you a few scenarios here where there are actually some known bugs in those, and those will be addressed by the time you're actually playing with the software. So let's get started. In the last video, we created two different scenarios, an income number one and an income number two scenario, and we were able to display those on our graph here kind of concurrently. But now we want to be able to bring these two scenario threads back together again to be able to create some downstream calculations. Where whatifi differs from other sort of software is we give you the ability to go through door number one or door number two, but then come back together on the same sort of path for downstream common calculations. So in this video, I'm going to add an expense event after these events that we have here. I'm going to bring up our event selector. I'm going to select expense, and I'm going to add that to the canvas. And here I'm going to add an ongoing expense. So let's call this expense number one here, and this is something that is monthly. Maybe this expense is a little further into the future here, and we're going to associate that with our expense account. I'm going to add this to the model, and as you can see right now, it is not calculating. I'm going to update the calculations, and now in one of these scenarios, I have those expenses, and the other one I do not. It's only calculating one of those two scenarios. I can show this to you by exposing the expense ledger, which is now available to us because we have some values for that. And if I'm selecting the expenses, you'll see that one has no information and the other one has that expense data that's in it. To bring these two back together, I'm going to select the event that I want to start from. And in our menu here, the last icon is our connect icon. When I select connect, any events that are connectable get this orange border around those. I can select the event that I want to connect to, and then I have to come back to this icon to complete that connection. Right? Now, as a reminder, we need to do a recalculation here right now. And now this expense event is in both of those ledgers. Scenario thread number two and scenario thread number one. And we're able to see that particular calculation that's in there. All right, next up, what we want to do is we want to start to learn how to bypass or interactively change some of our calculations in the model. I'm going to take this expense event and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it on the same event here, which is going to append it downstream. And I'm going to open this one up and I'm going to change this value. I'm going to change this value to 500. And I'm going to update that. And I also noticed in the previous one, I actually forgot to fill out an ongoing expense value. So I'm going to change this to be $6,000. So I'm going to update that. Okay. And I'm going to recalculate. And that's going to help me confirm there that I actually have some expense values that are in here. So you can see those expense values. It's the 6,000 plus the 500, which is actually $6,500 now. Okay, so let me just kind of recap there. I did make a mistake where I forgot to put some values in there. So I went back and I edited this event and I added in $6,000 in the one event and I added in $500 in the other event. And let's actually offset that data a little bit as well, just to really sort of prove a point. And I'm going to update this and I'm going to recalculate. And again, as a reminder, in our new version, you will not have to always re-add this ledger. It will just sort of stay. So now we have our $6,000 here, and then you'll see it increases to $6,500 on that date that we changed. Now, what if you're working with a client and they're like, well, maybe we won't have this other expense here? I give you the ability to click on this event here, and you notice that the second icon here is a bypass icon. I can select bypass, and I can recalculate this model. And if I pull up my expense ledger here again, you'll see that temporarily in this one version, that $6,500 is no longer calculating. We've temporarily bypassed that entire event. I'm going to deselect the bypass. I'm going to recalculate. And now when I bring up my expenses here, you'll see that that expense is back into the model. We also give you the ability to do that on a per record basis. So you may recall in this event here, we have two income streams. We have our Vancouver revenue and we have our London revenue. I give you the ability here to bypass an individual record. So maybe in this scenario, there is no London revenue. I can bypass that here by clicking this icon and select Update. And then when I recalculate my model, I'm going to bring up my income ledgers here again. I'm going to bring up income and I'm going to bring up my London revenue. And now if I look at my income, I have two scenarios, one with more income and one with less. And if I'm looking at my London revenue, one I have the London revenue in it. And in the other thread, this highlighted path, there is no London revenue, and that's why you're not seeing any information here. If you want to reinstate that, I'm double clicking on this. I'm going to the record that we had bypassed. I am selecting this active icon that turns that back on, and I'm selecting Update, and I'm recalculating. And now that London revenue is back into our model. And I can see that in scenario thread number 1 and scenario thread number 2. So what have we done in this video? In this video, we've learned how to connect threads back together to create downstream calculations. We've learned how to bypass individual records or entities, and we've learned how to bypass entire events in all of their content. In the next video, we're going to talk about locking threads and how to make some decisions in our models.